So we have on our episode today our guest Sabrina to answer the question, what makes you happy? Now, this isn't you answering the question, but this is how you would use this question in your evangelism opportunities. Because we all know what makes you happy.
Yeah, so I think this is a really good question to use just to kind of get to know the person, know what kind of things they put value in and really find fulfillment or purpose in. And it's a really good just tying into things that they make them happy.
Mm-hmm. So is there maybe any particular conversations where examples that you could give where you have used this question before?
When I used to go evangelizing at UCSD for campus evangelism, I would kind of ask, I guess, a question similar to this, like, what makes you happy, or what is the purpose of your life, to kind of get into, like, what things do people kind of prioritize. And people usually it's either like school, things like family, relationships, things that they really value. And I think it's a good tie-in into kind of talking about what if these things were kind of taken away? Like, how would you really react to it to see if they actually give lasting satisfaction and fulfillment?
Mm-hmm. So do you have an opportunity to maybe you segue into and share about what actually does make us happy?
Yeah, I think so. After getting to know what makes them happy, what are they living for, what's their purpose, and then kind of getting to know that, then kind of hitting on these things, they're only temporary, right? So one thing that I like to use is Ecclesiastes, talking about the futility of life, talking about even King Solomon, how he had it all. He had all the riches, he had his kingdom, he had the reputation, and yet even that wasn't something that was lasting in fulfillment, something that really made him happy till the end. So I think after talking about that, then transitioning into what gives lasting fulfillment, what actually are things that make me happy, and then talking about the gospel, sharing about this life-changing message. It gives purpose, it gives direction. It's something that gives really fullness of joy in why I'm living today. And I think it's something that is not so head knowledge or theological, because through sharing about how I live my life, and even the interactions that they can have with me, I think it is cool, and it's evident the things that I'm doing for the church, or things worshiping God or serving the Lord. It truly is something that is long-lasting joy and fulfillment that it gives me.
So when you ask these questions, when you have these conversations with these people that you're evangelizing to, you said that when you ask them what makes you happy, then they usually ask you what makes you happy in return. After
Right,
right?
yeah.
So would you say that that's always the case, that they reciprocate like that?
I think it kind of depends. I think some people are definitely more talkative. And I think the nature of the question is really nice, because it normally as humans we would kind of ask okay, after I ask a question, you ask a question back. Although that is not always the case, because sometimes people can tend to be more shy, or people may not be as comfortable with having those conversations. So then sometimes it does take a little bit more probing, or me initiating okay, these are things that make you happy. Now let me share what makes me happy. So it kind of depends, but I think for the most part, people do ask that question back. So,
and it's like you said, a very important question to ask, very good segue to the gospel, because as you were talking about Ecclesiastes, I was also thinking of in Matthew 6, when Jesus talks about how where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. What makes you happy reveals what are your motivations in life, and what is your purpose in life, which is also another question that we will do on this channel. So changing gears a little bit, as a member of RGC active in evangelism, whether it's at home, with your friends, on campus at UCSD previously, what are some evangelism opportunities that you've had recently that you can share with us, that we can be praying for, and that we can just get to know you better?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I think one of the opportunities I've had is through small groups. So I'm a small group member at our church, and with small group leading, you get a lot of newcomers, you get a lot of people coming in, like maybe they're looking for a church, or they're like having questions about their faith. So one of the people recently, I was actually messaging her for a very long time, wanting her to come out, which was God's sovereignty that she was able to come out that small group. And so I was able to pick her up from UCSD and then bring her to small group. And in the car ride, like, we were able to get to know each other more. And she was just kind of sharing that she's just really looking for a church. She's trying to like find, purpose and meaning in life. And I was like, oh, that's a good kind of indicator that this is someone who's searching. And then she was able to attend small group and, ask different questions there. And then afterwards, when we were I was driving her back, that's when I kind of asked more questions to kind of get to know her more. Because in small group, she'd share, she felt like she's kind of just going through the routine of things. Like, there's not really any meaning to her life. And she's really
not happy.
Yeah, she's not happy.
What makes you happy? Get the opportunity to ask the question.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it was really cool to kind of just dig a little bit deeper, kind of get to know her background, because it seems like she kind of grew up in a church, but she even acknowledged she doesn't have a relationship with the Lord, which I thought was really interesting, because sometimes people they grow up in the church thinking that they do have a relationship, that they are saved.
They delude themselves, yeah.
Yeah, but she was very self-aware,
Wow,
knowing
yeah.
Okay, I don't have a relationship because clearly I'm not doing things that would characterize a Christian. And then so we got to talk more about, how does one become a Christian? What does that look like? And I think for her, it kind of seemed like she was just do more reading the Bible, just pray more, and this is how you grow your relationship.
Yeah.
But then through that, being able to segue into first, to have a relationship, you have to actually know God. You have to know the gospel, make a decision. You can't just kind of slide into Christianity. Sure. Yeah. And kind of go about it that way. And then sharing the gospel, it seemed like she was very interested. There was a lot of head nods. There was a lot of, oh, that makes sense, because I think just before she didn't really know too much about what Christianity was, even though she had been going to church. And so yeah, it was cool to be able to share the gospel for her, to kind of have those conversations with her, and praying that she comes out to small group again, and for more opportunities, because she was talking about how she definitely wants to follow up in the conversation. She was very interested in just learning more and being able to no, I think there was a lot of questions that she had that night, and a lot of things that thought she had, because I was this is a lot, I know, for someone to probably take in. So yeah, hoping that she comes out, and we'll continue to pray for her for that.
Thanks for sharing, Sabrina. We'll definitely be praying for that. And for our viewers, if you guys can be praying for Sabrina as well, for her small group leading, and for her opportunities to reach out to this particular individual, and hopefully for her to come out to not just small group, but to our church. Well, we are the offensive line, and on this episode, we heard from our friend Sabrina on this particular question. If you liked what you heard, you can subscribe to us. You can please like this video, comment down below in the comment section to let us know what you thought. If you want to ask Sabrina any questions, if you have any comments for anything that she said, then I can make sure that she sees it and responds to it as well. So with that, our series is Great Evangelists Ask Great Questions, giving you a question every week that you can add to your toolkit to use in your evangelism conversation. So again, we are the offensive line, and we'll see you next week.